Hi, I'm Dr. Janice Morrow. Thanks for joining us for another episode of American Mood Swings, where we talk about the brain and all things related to mental health. Welcome. My guest today is Lorenzo Lewis of the Confess Project, which is a kind of a mental health outreach in barbershops throughout the United States. And we connected on LinkedIn, and I was really impressed by his mission and his outreach and his work. So I wanted to, I'm grateful he's here today. So I'm just going to let him have the floor here. Share a little bit about we'll start with him sharing a little bit about his background and his journey that's launched his interest and sparked his interest in mental health, because it's quite a story. Quite a story.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Well, I'm grateful to always share, our ethos and our story of the work that we've done over the last going on 9 years now. And so we started pre-COVID in 2016 in Little Rock, Arkansas, focused on mental health and particularly Black communities. When we started, we wanted to ensure that Black communities had a place to be seen, heard, validated, and can be appreciated. And so we did this by creating the Confess Project. But this work was also rooted in my own personal experience, being born in jail to an incarcerated mother, being incarcerated at 17, being a part of gang activities, and just recognizing a lot of the challenges that I went through, recognizing that my peers and the people that were around me were also going through a lot of challenges as well. I looked at those challenges that I faced and that they faced was just almost like a curse of their life, when in fact it was something that they just had to endure because of whether that was social reasons or medical reasons. And we seem to identify that sometimes as a curse in the Black community when you went through mental health challenges. And so the Confess Project was really born out of my own experiences, watching other people go through their experiences. You know, and it was created to build a safe space. And so that's the work that we've done now. And I'm sure we'll jump deeper into that. But just wanted to kind of open that up with that's what motivated this work. And I'm sure that we'll share more about what's kept the wheels of turning over the last almost 9 years now.
It looks like you were raised by your aunt in Arkansas. And I'm just curious, like, unless it's too personal, if your mom is still alive, because if your aunt is still alive and lived to see all of this, like what you've done, you also mentioned that your dad had passed away when you were like in third grade. And I was curious if you had any uncles or friends that treated you like a son, those kinds of things when you were young.
Absolutely. So my mom passed when I was 21. I was grateful to have my aunt. She's still here with us now. She's in her early 70s and she's continuing to thrive and move forward in life. And so I'm grateful that she's here to witness this transition of my professional career, but also the transition of how we brought that story to life, of her beauty shop, and how that's now that ethos and that story is culminated now into a training that's impacting 5 million people across 35 states and 60 plus cities and 200 barbershops and 52 barber and beauty schools. And so I always say that our humble beginnings and the things that we may take for granted can become something more than what we could have imagined. And so I'm grateful that she's able to witness that. My parents obviously went through different health challenges and different personal challenges that didn't allow for them to be here. But I'm grateful that I'm able to continue to be a part of the next level of opportunity for now my daughter and my family, and particularly that's able to witness the aftermath of what they brought into the world. And so, but in addition, I believe, I'm grateful for the community that I've had on this path that's allowed for me to become who I am today. And I say that because I feel that there's a privilege to serve others and to be a leader. It's not we don't really get to we don't really get to we're chosen in a lot of ways to lead, and other people have to allow for us to lead them. And so I'm glad that the communities that I've served has allowed for me to be that chosen person that they are able to follow and be a voice. And so that's something that I take personal, even beyond my family roots, and how that's now transferred to leading others and serving others in the community.
Wow. Well, I was going to ask it later, but since you mentioned the growth, let's talk about the Confess Project and what it is to people who've never heard about it. I did want to hear a little more of the backstory, but yeah, let's talk about what you do with this Confess Project and where you mentioned how it spread. It's all, but for someone who's never heard of it, because I hadn't, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So about 9 years ago, the Confess Project started, and it started as particularly our first talk was at an African American church in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I had a mission to want to reach men in the Black community. I started off by trying to convene men at a library, and it didn't work. And I had an idea to take this to barbershops, and I had a colleague that was doing similar work in literacy with helping young people with reading in barbershops. And so, I kind of asked the question like, how would this work? Is this something that would work? Is this something that would be fruitful? And it was a very lot of hesitation because it had never been done at the level that we would want to do it. And so, nonetheless, we took a risk. I met a barber after so many turned down, so many denials from barbers that didn't want to be a part of it because they were nervous, they didn't understand it, they didn't think it would be beneficial, all of the above. One barber opened his doors and he owned about 4 shops and a school. And so he had a community of barbers and different things in the grooming space in Arkansas that really allowed for us to grow and to think bigger. And so utilized his places of establishment as a cornerstone of the work that we do. And it really blossomed. And immediately after the first shop talk, we got on the road. We went to Louisville, Kentucky, and then we went to Atlanta, Georgia, and then we went to Mississippi. And from there, we visited our first 6 states. And we reached out to media crews and local people. We networked with barbers. We called folks on the phone. We Googled Yellow Book numbers as much as we could to get people connected, let them know who we were. We had videos we had did on our camera phones to say, hey, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. And we want to come bring this to your community. And this is way before we became a national organization. We had only visited like 6 to 7 cities. And then about 12 cities forward, we got a random email from a PR company asking about a corporation that wanted to partner with us and that they wanted to help take our message to the next level. And that
Wow.
was their client was Gillette. And we worked with Gillette for about 2 or 3 years and received a lot of financial investments. And so we went from about 12 cities to 30, 40 cities, and now we're in 63 cities. We've worked with some of the biggest corporations you could think of, from Walmart corporations to the Arthur Blank Family Foundation, who's the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, the Texas Rangers, the Minnesota Vikings. We've worked with, we've been featured on Oprah and Kelly Clarkson and a host of other folks in the ecosystem. All of this is made part of because people saw that we put people first in the communities that we were working with, and that this work was really truly centered through storytelling. And our stories really help to shape our mental health journey. And I believe that's what's really impactful about the work that we do. It's not just we're taking this to barbershops, it's that we're really lifting up voices who have been unheard and giving them a path forward, because the way that the system has been designed is not to really appreciate them. And so what essentially is, it started as a barbershop talk. It's now a training that's been, that's evidence-based, that we've done research with Harvard University to say that this is now a scalable solution that helps to train barbers, stylists, frontline workers to be mental health advocates through a community solution. And so which is barbershops, and we're using that as an asset and how we help to empower marginalized communities. So I'm really grateful. I am led by the CEO of the Confess Project, who's affectionately my wife, Jordan Lewis, who leads as our CEO, and myself as a founder and visionary, provide support to her, our board, to seeing the next level of growth forward. But our team is composed of about 30 people. Now globally, we just hired our second person from South Africa because we see us as a global solution beyond an American solution. And so we are focused on continuing this work in the States, but also as we've hired someone from South Africa and I employed from Egypt, we are thinking of this in a global context because mental health is a global crisis. And so as we think about it being a global crisis, we know that we have to think globally solution based about solving this problem.
Beautiful. I mean, who knew? Yeah, I'm sure you never dreamed when you first were knocking on doors at the barbershop being turned down that it could expand to a global, and it takes a lot of, to me, I think it takes a lot of resilience. I love the stories that I read and see where people have had like 200-300 no's, and there's lots of them. And I just think it takes a lot of resilience to keep going. So let's talk a little bit, your storytelling. I want to hear, like, one of the things that you mentioned in the talk was that at your highest weight, you were like 548 pounds or something like that. And
Yep.
I'd love to know,
Yep.
you ran into an old friend. I hope it doesn't seem like I've been stalking
Yep.
you. Just try to research
Oh
who.
no, no, you're good. You're good. You're good.
Well, because I know that, like, we all, with our families and loved ones, you get concerned, but so many people are really sensitive, hypersensitive, I'd say. You say anything, even, and they get very defensive. And so, but there was a conversation, if I heard correctly, from a friend who just, it came in love, and it was well received by you, but that's what that conversation was, the spark. So I'd love to see your health journey. And I can't imagine, I would imagine that you were bullied a lot. I mean, as a child, or I don't even as adults get bullied. So let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, weight was always an issue, and I think it started a lot from hyper stress as a young person, grief that turned into an eating disorder, that also was just impacted by lack of educational nutrition, all the different things that marginalized communities are faced. But not saying that this needed to be my reality now, And so, rather not bullied, but taunted a lot about my weight growing up was a real thing. And, I did have a colleague, a couple of colleagues, but one in particular that really made a mention about, hey, to pay attention to my weight, to think more about myself, to take care of myself, and to think of me through a self-care lens. And so, I thought about that over the years, but I really had just accepted that, hey, this is my weight, this is how things is going to work, this is how things are going to look. And it didn't have to be that way. That I also have now, a daughter and my wife, and I have people that are obviously depending on me to show up and to be there. And so I took a chance a year ago, being approved for bariatric waist surgery, and since then I'm down about 80 pounds since then. And so looking to hit that 100-pound mark here soon of total weight loss. And so it has been a game-changing experience for me because it allowed for me to really think about, I had a real addiction with food, but also I had a real issue with control and also with
Me too.
just all the different things that come with obesity, right? Um, Identity and self-image issues and like all those different things were really present. And I think a lot of people go through this whether they are overweight or underweight or whatever that may look like. And so I'm grateful that I was afforded that opportunity to go through, bariatric surgery. Has been a game changer, and I'm looking forward to now just building more on that and making more progress. So
Well, what did you incorporate a lot of exercise and like behavior change? And you did, I love that you mentioned that you had a male eating disorder, because this is, when we think of eating disorders, the conversation's usually around women and starving
yeah.
themselves on social media. You don't hear a lot of men discussing eating disorders, and I think it's really important. And the self-image, and how lately I'm hearing more and more men share their story and how they can even compare themselves. I, like, honestly, as a woman, I never thought about that, because women look at social media and think I should be thinner, and they're doing all the filters. But men, I've heard some men say they look at other men that look really fit or with the big muscles and think, and they feel, but I never thought of that, of men feeling inferior. or comparing
Yeah, yeah.
ourselves.
No, no, absolutely. And I believe that, um, you know, men do struggle from self-image and self-identity issues, partially because of, men having to be the one to carry so much and be the provider and be the protector, but also being the one that has to, show up and be selected, and not being able to introduce themselves, being introduced as a man in most cases can bring challenges. And so men are always working hard, and I believe it's just an unspoken conversation that's happening. That's not happening, rather, I would say that could be happening, and hopefully conversations like this inspire others to think about um, weight and self-image and identity and confidence, and how that also just plays a big role into our, not only our mental health, but also our well-being and our character and our virtue and who we are as humans. And I believe that's a big part of what you're saying, is that we should share more conversation so people understand that how this helps to shape the character of men in our communities, and how that also plays a part in how we make decisions. Ultimately, that impacts the communities around us. And so yeah, I think for me it's more taking it a day at a time. And yes, it has come with exercise and being mindful about what I'm eating. I see a trainer about 3 to 4 days a week when I'm in town, and so I'm constantly using um, weight loss as a part of the better version of myself now, versus it's a punishment, or it's something I got to do. It's really a part of who I am now, and health is truly not only wealth, but health is well-being. And it's who we are as people. So
And your daughter, well, my mother was quite overweight most of my life. She's no longer here, but there was a lot of shame. She was very beautiful when she was young and very sexy, kind of that Marilyn Monroe body. So there were, as she got older, and I didn't realize it as a kid, but she would share, there was a lot of shame on her part. She felt so much shame that she had like let herself go, or like didn't want to go to her reunions. And I'm sure you know people like this, like in family photos, she always wanted to get behind people and like hide herself, or didn't want photos at all. And that would just break my heart, honestly, that there was all that shame associated with that. Like you have these, yeah, that you can't control. And there's so much we know. We're understanding more and more about addiction, and things can be pretty powerful and reinforcing in our brain. So, and you said your daughter was a big factor in your motivation wanting to be here and be here for show up for her. How old is she?
she's 12. She's 12. Yep.
Oh, okay, very good. Is she involved in this project at all, or doing her own thing, or?
I mean, I guess she's with me and my wife. So I think for two social entrepreneurs who's doing this, I think her life is just as connected. It's changed her life in a lot of ways. And so my role is to continue to help shape that as much as I can, to give her normalcy in the in the midst of being a kid. But yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about the growth. You're around the country now, and let's talk about some of the statistics because you're really focusing on lifting people of color out of poverty through your business ventures and the growth of the Confess Project. But let's like their how therapists are the numbers and how they're so underrepresented people of color, and there aren't, from talking to other guests, sounds like there's not nearly enough people of color who are therapists. So some of the schools are offering scholarships now. What are your feelings on these kinds of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about there's a challenge with the behavioral health workforce. Yes, there's about 4% of folks that are psychiatrists that look like me, that are African American. About 3 to 4% of those people who are clinician. So we have a workforce issue, and behavioral health workforce issue. Is why we started the Confess Project. Why it even now scales and goes forward is because we have to rebuild and rethink about the behavioral health workforce in a different way. I say rebuild because the system that was built before us, it just doesn't work any longer. And so we have to reimagine mental health through the lens of everyday people having mental health skills that can empower everyday people in everyday households. And so that's the work that we're doing at the Confess Project with Confess Health, which is a new initiative that we've started, that's going to be empowering, working with hospitals and emergency departments to help community members, whether that's going into the ER or whether that's having a resource or prevention to not have to go to the ER, to have those supportive folks. The work that we're doing with Confess Schools, which is going to be working with public schools, working with educators and paraprofessionals that are working in schools, empowering them who are empowering young people who are still going to barbershops, but also connecting with those folks in a cohesive way. So we have an issue, and I believe there's even a lack of Black male teachers, right? There's a low shortage of them. And so we have to reimagine the workforce through bringing folks like barbers, hairstylists, and other people who are in industries, whether they're a grocery store worker or they're a tattoo artist. We have to reimagine them a part of our workforce now. And that's across, because in the United States, a lot of our workforce is struggling because of our mental health issues, because of the crisis that we're facing. And it's causing, when you think about violence and you think about a lot of the challenges that we're facing in marginalized communities. I'm not saying this is happening in tech or in certain other industries where there may be a boom. I'm speaking more in terms of folks that are coming in contact with everyday institutions like our schools, churches, barbershops, people who are just everyday people who need to be empowered. We have to The work that we're doing at the Confess Project is reimagining that through how do we help to strengthen the workforce? How do we help to strengthen the people we are to work with to have skills? And how do they help to make the lives of other people better? And how do their life become better? And so when we think of it holistically, I believe we find better ways to really impact our communities in a much different way. The work that we're doing at the Lewis Family Businesses is reimagining how do we increase human kindness through decreasing poverty by creating opportunities. So the work that we do is still through mental health, but workforce development, and looking at how do we help to create jobs, and also how do we help to create housing. So the Lewis Family Business is a multidimensional model that's going to be focused on workforce and housing and mental health. But the core work that we do is through mental health. But what we recognize is that we can't just tackle this one way, that we can't just push people into talk therapy. We can't just push people into, oh, you need to go to counseling. That doesn't work for everyone. And that some people just need a job. Like some people just need running water. Some people just need a place to stay and a warm meal at night. Like, and that's actually it. And so I believe that America has done a not so much of a good job of just pushing. We need more mental health care. No, we need people to have basic needs met so that they can live better lives, so that their mental health won't become challenged, because everybody doesn't have a chronic issue, right? So I think that we have to think realistically about the way that our communities are navigating, is that some people just need basic needs met so that they can wake up tomorrow and have a way forward. And so that's what I've learned over my 15 years of mental health, is that we cannot push people into therapy. That we're failing people when we do that. And we have to think about people holistically. How do we support them holistically? And that's what we're doing through the ventures that I support, is that all of the work that we do is still mission-based. It still has a framework of human kindness, and it's helping to lift people up holistically. And essentially, that's what we're doing. That's the work that we represent, and the work that we do at the Lewis Family Businesses, at the Confess Project, and all of its arms that it supports. That's the work that we're doing.
There's so much. And I love that you talked about the everyday people, like the people, even at the grocery, that's something I wouldn't have thought of at the grocery store. These are the people that, well, like your grocery store worker, they're the ones who see you every week. You go to a doctor once or twice a year. I mean, like for your physical, if you're lucky enough to have insurance, and they don't really know you, you're there for 10 minutes. They're
Correct.
I mean, they're on, I have Kaiser and I'm in there, for my physical. If I'm lucky, it's 15 minutes. And I'm just probably one of 100 people she saw that day, 80 to 100 people. But I go get my hair colored once a month. That gal probably she probably, and I'm there for 2 hours and we're chatting for a good hour of it. So to your point, and getting to know people and the kindness and the compassion, they're going to recognize if something, they're going to be the ones who know if maybe you're someone in your family died or you lost your job. And now we're seeing so many. I'm here in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of people. The film and TV industry is being kind of turned upside down between AI and streaming. So thousands and thousands of people are losing their jobs. And
Wow.
what are your thoughts on therapy? Like, do you go to therapy, or have you used it in the past? What are your thoughts on that? Are you seeing more and more people receptive to it via like their point of entry at the barber shops, and then somebody recognizes them? Are you seeing more people go and be open to it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe that um, a lot of people are more open to mental health therapy than they were definitely before COVID, and post COVID rather. So I believe that more people are open to it. Yes, I've definitely seen a shift. I think that in our work, 90% of barbers and people that's come in contact in our program rather go to therapy if it's inside of a shop or in an untraditional format. And that in itself has allowed for us to reimagine the work that we do through people need skills. People don't actually need hospitalization in most cases. So also that causes for hospitals and insurances to be out of a lot of money, right? When we think about people that are going into emergency rooms and long-term stays that could have been avoided. So prevention is so important. But also, we've seen that 50% of the people that have come in contact with our work are better educated about mental health than they were before. And so this is data that we pull, real numbers that represent real facts. And I believe that that's important, that we move from a place of rigor instead of a place of just thought and feelings. And so that's what we're doing in the work that we do. Now, and essentially, when you think about the era that we're in, I believe that, again, we cannot coach and push people to want to go to therapy as much as we should want to coach and get people to have skills. Because even once you go to therapy, if you don't have the skills and the efficacy to keep up the treatment plan that you've been delivered, that you've been taken through, then it's going to be abruptly challenging to get people to really save themselves and not have to depend on, hospitals and other people to save them. When in fact, we can, I was someone that had major depression. Obviously I've talked about my weight journey, but I had the efficacy to go through those treatment plans, to go through and take those steps. And so I encourage that people that we come in contact with, that we should think about how do we help to save ourselves from the challenges that we're faced. Yes, we can use medication and treatment, and there's a lot of modalities that can empower us. But I believe that we have to think untraditionally about self-efficacy and how do we help to empower us that's going to be there for us later when something else may not be there for us. So, I think that's where, I think that's so important for us to think about. So,
Well, let's talk about some of those skills then that you're teaching people. Like
yeah,
a
sure.
few months back, it was one of my favorite conversations. I had a conversation with an anger management guy, and he's worked in the prison system for 30 years. And I learned a lot, like errors in communication and just control, because I mean one moment of anger could just ruin your life, an episode, you shoot or somebody or just hit someone and now you have a felony. But let's talk about the skills you're to help with the self-efficacy, and where if you're not going to counselors, and what the tools that you are teaching people, communication, these kinds of things.
Yep, yep. Yeah. So we empower folks in our curriculum that we have an 8-hour training and there's a 20-hour contact training. So you can be trained as an advocate or you can be trained as a trainer in our Beyond the Shop evidence-based course that we offer through the Confess Project. And also this is the same thing that we use in the Confess Health and the Confess Schools program that we're opening up now, is that we teach active listening as one of the pillars that it talks about. Validation is the second tool and skill. Positive communication is the third one, and then stigma reduction is the fourth. And so these are 4 tools that we use in our training that we deliver for advocates and for folks who are doing this as in a training that can go out and train other people. And it allows for them to use this as skills, and it's a lot more commentary and information that goes along with this, which makes it eight hours at a minimum and 16 hours, 2.5 days for people that are becoming trainers. There's a lot more like mock interviews and dialogue and different things you have to present in order to be certified in the model. But essentially, those are the 4 key tools. And so with those tools, it allows them to have mental health skills for themselves and for other people. So we think about CPR first aid is a good example. We think about mental health first aid. What we do is provide that in the terms for marginalized and Black communities and communities who've been left behind, communities who've been unheard and unsupported. And so whether that's women, whether that's people with disabilities, whether that's LGBTQ populations, this is where the work that we do really shows up. Because in our research with Harvard, 32 barbers across 8 states went through pilot interviews that allow for us for this model to become evidence-based. And now that it's published, our research has been published, we utilize urban Black communities to go through this study, to study that this model would allow for them, barbers and groomers particularly, to become mental health prevention gatekeepers, suicide preventers, and interpersonal violence community gatekeepers. So in addition, our model supports mental health, can help prevent suicide, can help decrease domestic violence and interpersonal community violence. So with that being said, we know that people will live better lives once they went through our work. And it even shows in case studies where I can say case in point, we've had a barber in Philadelphia who had a client was sitting in his chair. The client expressed ideas of suicidal ideation, and that barber was able to empower him with information that allowed for him to not go through that circumstance and not die by suicide. Our training was able to help empower that individual. We've also seen on the other side, different barber, different state, where that was not the case. The client went missing. He was nervous. The client had said that he didn't want to live any longer, but the barber hadn't been through our program yet. And so this is the similar situation, someone walking into a community establishment and making it clear that I don't want to live any longer. Now, they're in an establishment where there's no medical professionals, right? There's no therapists that are nearby. These are everyday people who's just coming in to get a haircut, that's watching sports, that's sitting down, eating a pack of Skittles, waiting on the next person to get out the chair so they can get a haircut. This is just everyday life. And this is how it really looks. This is how mental health really looks. It doesn't look like people going to a therapy couch or going to a facility, right? We have to think about mental health in the terms of community care. And we like to call it community care because we know that the real work happens outside of the hospitals. The real work happens on the streets and it happens in the community. That's where it really happens. But we want to partner with agencies so we can help them with saving costs, help them with their workforce. We want to help to connect and build these relationships so that we can help to do great things together. So hopefully that kind of brings all of it back and to empower their message.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Lorenzo. I was going to segue into that. So the current goals for your organization, your most current projects, and then you've mentioned some corporate partnerships. Are you always looking for more? Do you have a team? Anybody in particular? And how are you pretty much funded? Is it like how, if somebody like listening to this loves this and says, I want to be involved, are you always looking for volunteers, or is it focused so pretty much on the sponsors now? How can people help with this?
All of it. We have public events. We're always looking for volunteers. We have so volunteers are always needed. We do a lot of give backs to the community, whether that's helping support young people and families. And so we're always empowering our community to do giving back. So volunteers are always needed. We're always need donors to want to support, whether that's to support our work through our nonprofit, to doing these trainings for free in the community that may want to sponsor so many people to go through our training. We do have a fee for service model. So if there's individuals that would like to take this course, they can, pay through it in a traditional format. So if that's ever, that's always an opportunity as well. We do receive grants. We obviously receive contracts, but in addition to that, we're always thinking about the next level of growth through financial opportunity of scaling this work. And unfortunately, the philanthropic sector is not sustainable where we can only use grants to do this. And so we do have a for-profit enterprise that we're able to offer this through, again, a fee for service and a consulting model. And so, but yeah, nonetheless, always looking for help. And I believe whether you're a volunteer, a donor, we need you to be a part of this movement. There's somewhere for you to play a part with us in some kind of way. And so hopefully that kind of gives encouragement to the listeners today. So
I think I saw you sharing things on social media about you had something because we have an election coming up, very important election in just a few weeks, and you were doing like
yep.
haircuts, donating haircuts for people who registered. How did that work? Or
So it was for people who were already registered or people that wanted to register here in Georgia, particularly in Georgia. I'm not sure if it was like this everywhere, but in Georgia here, Miss Monday was the last Monday was the last day to register. You wasn't registered, you needed to be registered. So we had there was just a get out the vote drive to get people to come out to vote. If they had, went through that process, we were offering free haircuts. But it was also just for anybody who wanted to just come up and learn information about the electoral process, the voting process. So my team and a couple of donors came together and we donated 200 free haircuts.
love it.
I can't remember exactly how many people got their haircut at the event. It was a 4-hour event at a barber school, one of our partners that we've worked with in the past. And yeah, I think we still got about, I'm sure, another 80 or 90 haircuts. They'll be cutting hair for the next probably 1 to 2 months for free. So that's a good thing, right? So because we also know that there's a lot of single mothers and families and people out here, that need their children hair to get cut. So if you're in the city of Atlanta, Greenbrier Mall at Atlanta Barber Institute. You can drive by, and we hope to do this more because I recognize that when I travel to 35 states training barbers and training people on mental health, that people just, again, don't have basic needs to be met to get a haircut, to pay for gas, to get food. And so, for a mother that may have 3 or 4 kids, or for someone who just barely is making it, we hope that those donations to get free haircuts will empower people. And again, they'll get to look good at the same time. So
Nothing wrong with that. Are there any like contra are there things that you wish that people would know? You're working and guiding people and training them. Are there some things that you see and think, I wish this would change, or the system or behaviors that people do that you say, this just has to be changed. This is all wrong. Anything like that? I don't know if I'm wording it right.
yeah, no, I mean, I think a lot of it is, I just wish that leaders knew to tell the truth more about what's really going on. I think as leaders, we have to be transparent with the public. We have to be realistic with the people we serve. And my goal is that if we can just tell the truth about and be honest and be integral about what's to come and what's to be expected. I believe that we have to empower people, but empower them through integrity and being honest. And I think that's, integrity is so key, and it's just something you can't teach in leadership. And so we have to encourage that people use that characteristic as much as possible. I think once you become a leader, that is a cornerstone of you leading others and practicing integrity and transparency. And so I think that looks different across different fields. But I believe that while I've been leading and while I do the work that I do, I want to do this in honesty and do it in the light as much as possible. I'm not a Ivy League academic professional. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist or even a barber. In fact, I'm just a guy who went through some lived experiences, came from the neighborhoods that I served and the communities that I'm helping. And I remember when there were leaders who led me who sometimes didn't give me the fulfillment that I'm giving other people. And so I just ask that leaders who are listening to this do that for the people you serve in the most authentic way as possible. And I think this will sound different for anybody who's listening today. That may look different for anybody, whether you are a school board member or a volunteer at a parent teacher association. Please lead with integrity and please lead with transparency so that the people you serve will be led to do the right things as well. And so I think we have to look up top who's leading us and how are the people beneath us, how are they living their lives, because I think that they are a reflection of us, so when people are appalled by our barbers and all the people we've worked with, it's because of who've led them. Like I've really practiced this in my own life. So I think that we have to be authentic and continue to show up in the best way possible. So
well, people respect authenticity. I think most people, whether you call it an intuition, a gut feeling, when someone seems phony and not sincere, and they're not genuine. I know I respect people when they're honest, even if it hurts my feelings. Sometimes I can respect someone being honest, and whether it's not too many people. I don't think most people are very honest.
yeah.
It's a very admirable quality. Anything else that you'd like to touch on that I might not have asked? I mean, I'm just so appreciative. We got a couple minutes, but is there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to bring up, or did we cover everything? The most
No,
important.
I feel like we covered a lot, and I would just encourage anyone who want to learn about the Confess Project, please visit the confessprojectofamerica.org. You know, I know we kind of talked about that in the bulk, and a lot of the mental health work that we're doing can be found there. Or to follow more of the work that I do, Lorenzo P. Lewis, across all platforms and social medias, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Please follow Lorenzo P. Lewis, and my website is lorenzopLewis.com. If I can be of help or service to what you're doing, what you all may be doing in your community. So thank you so much, Janice, and your show is going to help a lot of people, and thank you for allowing me to share testimonies and truths of the folks that I represent across the United States. So,
well, thank you, Lorenzo, and I hope to meet you in person in the future. And thanks, everybody, for joining us for another episode of American Mood Swings, where we talk about the brain and all things mental health. Hope to see you next week, and please share with your friends.